Yeah, I think great. Okay, I think Thanks for the intro, Joanna, and to GDG CDO. Thanks for inviting me, and to everyone's watching. Thanks for joining us here as we celebrate GD Google I/O Extended here at wherever you are. Yeah, everyone's probably remote right now. But at least for this presentation, our focus is on understanding what null safety is and how you, as a Flutter developer or someone who has previously created an app, at least before Flutter 2.0 or Dart SDK 2.12, how you can migrate your existing apps to sound null safety. And been introduced. Just a quick overview. Currently, I've been working on several fintech apps. Right now, and in 2 weeks, I'll be moving to a different company focused on investing, also based in the US. And previously, I've been working on building digital banks, also in the US. Together with my team, we're creating experiences, hosting meetups, and organizing events at Flutter Philippines for Dart and Flutter enthusiasts. So before we even start, with null safety, I assume maybe some of you are not aware what Flutter is. Flutter is basically a toolkit that allows you to build apps for several platforms. So whether it's Android, iOS, web, Android, iOS, and web are already out in the Flutter 2.0 as in the stable channel, but on top of that, Flutter also supports deploying apps to platforms like Mac OS, Linux, and Windows. So Flutter is basically a cross-platform UI toolkit, or actually a multi-platform toolkit that allows you to build these awesome applications that you write using Dart code. And again, our agenda is for you to understand in a nutshell what null safety is, because our primary focus here is to understand the thought process. For you to be able to migrate an existing Flutter app. For example, we'll start with a very simple project. You'll see how straightforward it is for simple projects to get migrated to null safety. The other one is, I have a side project that I've uploaded to Google Play and App Store. We'll try to migrate it to null safety as well today, and let's see what will be the possible issues that we might encounter if we're working on migrating real world projects, especially, for example, the projects that we're working on in our companies or side projects that we have. Null safety. So null safety is a concept of preventing, null pointer exceptions, basically in the code or in the projects that you are working on by intelligently saying that variables, return types, or function expressions are can be nullable during runtime. But my experience with null pointer exceptions, since I started coding in Java, Android has been really a bad one. There are really some parts of the application that you can't predict how it will become null or when it will be null. So there are a lot of questions around those NPE questioning. You're questioning your life, or am I actually doing or writing good tests? But again, null pointer exceptions, even if you have solid unit tests, if if the integration, if other parts of your application, for example, you're working on a homepage, but for some reason the other developer have set this variable to null, so that will be really difficult to track in unit tests. Again, if you don't have solid integration tests, it will be difficult to go around, review the code, which is which, what specific part of the code is causing null pointer. And you'll start questioning yourself, how is it happening? You're seeing the Firebase Crashlytics. Oh, null pointer is actually an existing, part of the program. So null, is also is a part of, really programming. There are instances where it can be useful, but a lot of times this gets misused. So think of it if you have initializers on your variables. You have initializers in your variable, and at some point you don't actually need to use it, but you've added null as a value anyway. So that's a valid, that's a valid code. But at least before Flutter 2.0, this is something that cannot be easily tracked or checked by the analyzers in Dart. And when this happened, like you're trying to, this is not actually concatenate, but rather add two values like count, which is null, plus 0. This will lead to runtime app crashes. So meaning if the user of your app tries to open, like your application, your product, uh, your app basically shows this app stopped working. Though a message, along those lines, and again, null is still valid. Now there are some parts of the app which which you really don't need at all if certain business logic is not met or conditions are not met, like along the way by the user. So another one is, what if you forgot like to initialize a variable? Like this might also lead to a runtime app crashes and something that you have to like you might need to deploy a fix to get rid of that. For large teams and projects, I've worked with several engineers back at like my previous companies, and if you're the only developer that they have, I think, and like you mastered it or probably familiar with the code, I think it's still difficult not to maintain it in the long run. Like, for example, if you're onboarding new developers, like they might ask, oh, what is this very obscure, very like ninja code that like they're saying, because you probably have a lot of workarounds not to get around with null pointer exceptions. But again, this will not work for large teams and large projects, because teams like like people who are part of these teams are deploying features, sending PRs, sending pull requests, probably multiple times a day, and like tracking it manually is something that is really difficult to do. And again, like we've been talking about null pointers a lot, and the end effect of this is basically just app crashes. And like with app crashes, this in turn like brings an annoying and bad user experience to users, which might be might be a bad one, especially like if it impacts your business at scale. For example, 100,000 users experience this one, which is not great. And again, like we've been talking about variables that can be null. Null pointers can also be applied or like like added to like function returns, generic types, lists, you name it. Like it's not limited to the variables that we've instantiated in the code, but to other parts of the code as well. And with null safety coming into Flutter, we're now able to catch NPEs, potential NPEs during development. So we'll see it later in action, how Dart analyzer is actually telling you, oh, like this variable is not initialized. You should either add a flag, you should either unwrap it, like force unwrap it, or mitigate, like that, like maybe convert it to a nullable variable in the future. So again, with null safety feature coming in with Flutter, we're now able to, like, our IDEs, our code editors are able to tell us that, like with analyzer help us that this is potential NPE, and compile time, like basically just tells us like this code cannot be compiled with given the null safety specifications. Like this might introduce runtime crashes. So this is an example of like at least with Flutter 2.0, how Dart is using like Dart analyzer to tell us that a variable is not instantiated, or a variable is explicitly like set with value as null. But again, it's not allowed with latest Flutter null safety support. So let's try to view this opening Dartpad. Let me check. Great. So at least for the first one, like you can check it out. I can also paste the link. We'll do it later. Right. So I guess I hope you're seeing my screens or my screen. Let me check. So let's try running this one. Again, there's a script error because like it's pretty obvious. We're trying to use a count, which is an int variable, and we set it to null. Now with Flutter, it comes with, at least with Dart, it comes with the support for sound null safety. So now, like on top of the performance improvements, the checks is going to like take into consider that if a variable is not null, it can never be set as null. Now in all throughout the part of the code base. So at least with this one, I'm telling the compiler that this is actually not nullable, but I'm setting it to null. So let's try to remove null and add a value 0 here, or 5. So let's try to run if this works. This should be showing an output of 5. Next example. So again, the first one is like nullable is not allowed if you haven't explicitly set that the variable is null. So for the next examples, we're going to check like how we can use the null safety feature in Flutter by using this symbol question mark. So earlier we have seen the example like int count explicitly set like as a non-nullable variable, but with this one I'm telling the compiler, the Dart analyzer, that like this count variable is a type of int, but it is optional. Like this can be nullable, or this can contain values which is of type int. And let's try to see. Let's try to see, like if this is something that we can run right now. All right, so there is. Okay, I think the null safety is disabled. Let me try to enable this one. Let's try to run. Okay, so right now this is not printing. No, this is not printing the value count plus 0 because we are already flagging, flagging it before this, like before this even block, gets called. So if we try to move, this one outside the condition statement, let's try to comment this one. This will return an error. Why? Because like this print is not sure whether this like this count variable is null, but at least it's telling us that this variable that we're trying to add to 0 is potentially like can lead to uptime crashes, which is something that like it's really difficult to track. Now imagine if you're working on a huge code base, like like looking at individual pieces of code without the compiler, telling us, oh, this is null, why are you trying to add it to 0? So again, with null safety, one thing that we can do is we can check first before we print or use the value if the value is null or with value. So at least with this one, we're checking if this one is not null, and we try to run it again. If this will not print it, but if I try to do something like this, count is null. Oops, I forgot to add semicolon. Great. So again, during development, the analyzer is already telling you this is something that like can lead to potential runtime crash because it's null pointer exception. And let's comment example 2. Let's go over to example 3. Comment this one. Great. So another interesting feature that came out of the null safety feature in Dart is that they allowed you to initialize variables at a later part of the code. So for example, like we've mentioned earlier, that what if the count variable is something that you don't need to initialize? For example, like if the user hasn't logged in the app, why bother to update like the authentication variables or JWT tokens? So there are instances where you may have to architect your app in a way that operations like this can be, like lazy loaded or can be initialized at the later part of the code. So assuming, like we need this count at the later part of the application, let's just try to add this keyword late. So with the late keyword, this tells us that, like this variable right now needs to get, like initialized, because again, Dart analyzers already telling us that this function returns a null value, but so at least with this one, like Dart analyzers already telling us that, oh, you haven't initialized this code yet. Why are you using it? So again, that's something that, like probably some of us might take for granted from some other programming languages, but with Flutter, it really is a powerful tool to help you build, like safer, like codes application. So at least with this one, like right now we've initialized it, and now the analyzer is telling us, oh, you can actually use this because you've already initialized it with a value. So if you try to print it, like definitely we'll just print the value that we have assigned to that late variable. And the other interesting case for null safety, because there are a lot of possible interesting case here, but like we don't have the luxury of time, so let's just like probably focus on like the things that you'll probably encounter a lot the most. So at least with this one, nullable is allowed, but one instead of you trying to like initialize it at the later part of the code, you're actually forcing the Dart compiler, like, no, I'm sure that this return type is not going to be null. So that's one thing as well. We call it force unwrap, in which we use the bang operator, like question mark. So if you try to run this one, right now this is again a script error, which like with the bang operator, I'd recommend not using it a lot, not unless like you're really sure that this function, return type, or variable is going to be not nullable during like when the app is running to the users. So with this one, like it's obvious that this function returns an optional type of int, and I'm returning a null value. But what I'm doing here on line 21 is I'm trying to tell the compiler, no, I'm pretty sure that it's not null. So, but again, like there are a couple ways to get around this one. One thing is you can either check first whether the count is null or the result is null before you even use the value. So that's one thing. And last but not least is we have example 5 here, which is, for example, this count value is null, right? You can also set a default value. For example, instead of getting the count here, like which is null at the moment, you can just do something like this. Count is null. So if you try to run it, yeah. So at least with this one, it already tells us that since this function returns a null value, I can just simply switch to the default value, which is count is null as a print type. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the kind of like high level overview, what to expect in terms of like migrating your code to null safety. Let's actually try it, like see it in action in a few. So at least with null safety, again, it makes like it helps you as developers or teams work on a safer code. And like writing code, adding more features, working with large team becomes more easy. And again, the long run, the benefit of this is if you're leaving or if you're onboarding or offboarding someone, then the maintenance will be a lot simpler because you don't have any workarounds with NPEs, but rather you have a set of standards. What values are getting, like getting null values, what like what other parts of the app is like not getting, basically not null values. And at least for the workshop, this will be pretty straightforward. We'll just go over this diagram, and the first one is like you'll probably want to look at this. Let me just, not sure if this is zooming. So the ideal migration workflow. So at least with this workflow, like all you have to do is like follow this step from like, I think this should really be pointing from left to right. I guess there's, yeah, I don't. All right, let's just ignore it for now. But again, we'll start from this one. And the first step that you have to do is to wait. Like wait for the packages first, wait for the plugins first before you start the migration of your project. So later on, we'll see it in action. Like I think the side project that I have right now is really old, and like we might need to update some packages. Like that it depends on. So again, if the packages has been like migrated, you can now start doing the migration step. So for the migration step, like assuming that everything here has already been migrated and does not look something like this, like other parts of the packages are not yet null safe, you can select whether you want to migrate your app using the migration tool or the manual migration. So at least with our case, we'll just have to use the migration tool because like really it's a powerful tool. Like especially if you're working on a big project, like whether you want to do the changes or the migration incrementally, or whether you want to do it like on one go, like then I think migration tool is still the best one, like to use on top of the, I think migrating it by hand. Because again, like we're not compilers, like if there are tools out there that can help us, like like we should really maximize it for efficiency, but at the same time for like for us to be able to do like our jobs pretty quick. So with this one, we have the migrate, and the last two steps are just pretty straightforward. We'll just run if there are any more issues included in the null safety. And again, as last part of like before we release our app, we do testing, either manual or running the existing tests that we have for the app. So that's at least for the workflows. First is you have to wait. If you have packages, plugins that are not yet null safe, try to send a PR and help them migrate those packages. Next step is, this is where we will spend most of our time. We'll do migration using the migration tool, analyze the code if like using static code analysis by provided by Dart, and test. So those are just the 4 simple steps that we'll just have to iterate through the process. So let's try to do it right now. Okay, so the app that I'm trying to migrate right now is the devs board. Like I think this is something that you can see on, let me try, devs.flutter. Not sure if this is still the domain, but yeah, we can run it locally as well. This is just a simple project. Let's try to see it. Let me quickly open it. Great. So right now it only contains a few files. So basically we have the dashboard, the dev board, and a couple of things in the core file, which basically contains the core repositories, where we're pulling the data of these awesome developers locally, and the models. Let's see, where is, I'm running it on my terminal. Okay, I think there's just one issue. So this is not related to null safety, but I think this is just the import. So let's try to run it again. I'm running on Flutter for Web before Flutter 2.0. So this is a bit experimental. So this is the app that we're trying to migrate. Later on, we'll see it in action, like how we can migrate this app. So I built an app, publish it like this one. This is just a simple habit tracking app. So this one is also written like before Flutter 2.0. So we'll try to see, we'll try to see if we can actually migrate this one after the simple project. So again, this is a complex project. It has payment options. Like it has integrations with revenue cat, in-app purchase, and a bunch of things that like makes it a bit more complex than the first one. So this is the first project. Let's try to see it. All right. So this is the local project. So we don't actually need to go over the exact UI of, like what parts of the app, like are we going to check. But our goal here is to run it on sound null safety. So right now, oh, I think it's disconnected. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing my screen. Let me just, let me just sub the cam. All right. For some reason, can you guys see my screen? All right. Great. I had technical difficulty, but yeah, we're back. Let me check if it's working. This is weird. Great. So at least with this one, now look, we're looking at a project that is currently running with unsound null safety, meaning, like, like the things that we've done here, like for example, question mark for optional variables, flagging if the count variable is null. This is something that we cannot do, if the project is still on running on unsound null safety, meaning it doesn't support null safety features yet. Which again, if you're not using the null safety feature, it will be difficult for your team to actually experience the benefits of moving away, not to the NPEs or SUs that caused by null pointer exceptions. So the first step that like I do whenever I migrate a package or a project is I um, try to check whether the variables are null, or sorry, the dependencies or packages are already migrated, not to null safety. So let's see. Let's go over to pubspec.yaml. So this is where, in a Flutter app, this is where the dependencies are added. So for example, if you need something from Google Fonts or provider, then this is where you will add it. Great. So right now it's showing us with the command dart pub outdated mode null safety. It shows us what dependencies needs to be migrated and which part of the app, which part of the app packages and dependencies has the latest version, which supports null safety. So in this one, I recommend looking at the resolvable column first. If you're, like if it's your first time doing the null safety migration, because the latest one might have, might have breaking changes in the code. So at least with this one, the next command that we're going to run is dart. Actually, it's not here. Dart upgrade null safety. Right now, again, this Flutter app was built before Flutter 1.0, so the SDK is using 2.7. But later on, like with the migration tool, this will help us migrate it to 2.12 Dart SDK. So let's see. So right now, if you'll try to git diff, like you can see here that the dependencies are already migrated for us by the command dart pub upgrade null safety. So this one, like from 0.1.00, it is now 1.0.3. Same for Google fonts, and same for provider and other packages. So now let's try to run again. Pub outdated. Let's see if there are still dependencies, like that are not yet migrated to null safety. So at least with this one, if you have received this message, all of your dependencies declare support for null safety, then it's a good time to start doing the migration. So for the migration, you only have to think of one command, which is dart migrate. And we'll have to type in the terminal, dart migrate. And this will start looking at, like the parts of your app which, like which needs to be migrated to null safety or which can cause potential null pointer exceptions. So it's still analyzing the project. All right, so this will give you a link to the migration tool, which you can use to go over the files and review them individually. So the good thing about Flutter, like the Dart team has prepared this cool migration tool in which you can, like probably, like go over the files that you want to migrate or just migrate everything by using this tool. So for example, you can see here that there are a couple of files here with kind of like a badge number, badge count. This means that these are some parts of your app which might need to change. So at least in this case, the migration tool is smart enough to tell me that, oh, this variable can be null, but like I have an option to either apply, apply what the migration tool is telling me to do, or just ignore it. By like for example, I wanted to not be nullable, I can just click this one. But in my case, no, I just really want to migrate this app to null safety code. And one thing that you can do is just click apply migration. So again, with the migration, you can do it like like two ways. Now, either you can migrate specific parts of your app. So for example, I only want to migrate core libraries for the meantime, submit it for pull requests, and it's best if you can do that, especially for large applications, because with this one, like right now, we have migrated 20 files. So imagine what if you're working on a large project, then you'll probably touch hundreds of files, or maybe like not thousands. So let's see if what are the changes made. All right, as you can see here, Dart has migrated my code to null safety by, like I let him, like add two question marks to places where like the migration deem it necessary. For example, like some of the variables here can be nullable or optional, and if you can do it also as well by hand, but again, it will be real difficult to do it by hand without like running or working like with the code along the way. Like for example, if you're not familiar how the code works, I think it's best if you can just go over like using the migration tool, really, because this one, like it's smart enough to know which variables are nullable or not. But yeah, like you still have the control whether to use the suggestions or like ignore the suggestion by clicking on the hints here on the lower right. So right now it already migrated my app to null safety. Again, it's very straightforward by just applying it in the migration tool. Let's just try to run it. So earlier we have seen our app running with unsound null safety. So let's try to see if this app is going to run with sound null safety. So this is just starting a new app on the web. I'll just prepare the next example. But for the next example, we might not be able to finish it from start to finish. I mean, at least from like the entire migration, but let's see. All right, the app is now running, but what is the message here? Great. So if your app, like shows you this one, this message, um, your app is running with sound null safety. You can now, like experience, like the benefits of really, like mitigating null pointer exceptions, probably potential, like preventing app crashes in your app as you try to build more features on your app and maintain your code in the long run. So this is the first one, the simplest approach. But I think we can have like last 5 minutes to get over the second project. So at least with this one, I will just show you like the same steps, but again, like you might encounter a couple of issues along the way if you try to migrate a real project, like that has a lot of files, a lot of code, in especially for example if you have deployed your project already working with teams. So right now this is a very big code base. There's although this is, let me check where is the app. All right, so this is the app. If you try to see this one, there are a couple of parts here. Like there's like earlier there are only two features. With this one there are a lot of features. Like there's habit detail, there are like edit detail view. You can also select like cover photos for this one for your habits, like I mean for mindfulness. But like if you try to look at it, like it's more complex than the other one. I also have in-app purchase as well. Like if you want to track, for example, your mood, you can buy um, the subscription for that one. But again, our goal here is not to look over the features, but rather migrate the entire app to null safety. So let me check the terminal. Again, the first step is to wait, wait whether the packages or plugins are already migrated. So to do that, if you want to check, like whether the packages or plugins are migrated, you'll have to run the same command, flutter pub outdated. So this will just check the dependencies from my pub/spec.yaml. Earlier, we only have a few dependencies, so I think this will be a challenge here because we have really a lot of dependencies if you're working with large projects. So right now, there are about 20 plus dependencies. And right, so I think I already committed. Yeah, I think I already committed that one. Let me go over it again. Yeah, I think I've already committed the dependencies early on. Let me just run it again. Okay, still have a few minutes. Okay, great. So similar with the first step that we've implemented with a small project, we'll just have to check. We'll just have to check whether the dependencies is null safe or supports null safe code. So with this one, there are a lot of dependencies here that are these are pretty old, like versions of the dependencies. So I really have to migrate this project to null safety. So again, there are a lot of dependencies. You can either migrate them individually. That's my recommendation. But like since we only have a limited time here, let's just migrate. Uh, and let's just let the Dart tool migrate it for us. Oh, I think there are cats out there. Let me use my. All right. Okay. Let me switch my mic. There are a lot of cats out there. Okay. Great. Again, if you can see here, like earlier, like with the simple project, it's straightforward. Like the dependencies are already, like migrated by the tool. But with this one, like we still have to do it by hand. Like for example, we have to look if the, like if the Flutter Swiper or if the Flutter Talk has been migrated. So let's see. The way you do it is by visiting pub.dev. Again, like migrations are not perfect. Like there might be some issues that is very specific to you. But what I'm showing you is that like you can, like like you can like make your way. Like if you have encountered similar issues like this. So for example, like this one, the developer has like left the project already. Like the last version was published like December 16. So like this doesn't have any support for null safety. So to check whether the packages have support for null safety, you can like there's additional badge here. If I click provider, there's a null safety tag here or badge. But again, with the plugin that we have, it doesn't support null safety. So what I do is I visit the GitHub repository and see if there are any pull requests. Otherwise, I'll have to do it my own. I'll have to migrate Flutter Talk and send a pull request. So with this one, I've seen that there's already a pull request. Now someone has really migrated this one for us, and I already have the copy of that branch. So let me check PubSpec and Flutter Talk. Instead of depending on the ones in pub.dev, I'll just use the branch of this developer that migrated this package for us to null safety. So I'll try to see again if the packages are still supporting null safety. Great. Okay. Yeah. At least for that one, like the Flutter talk is already out, like removed from this list, meaning we only have a few packages to migrate before we can fully migrate this entire project to null safety. So I tried to see simple switch. So this is the package that I actually made. So I haven't migrated it to null safety, but I did earlier. I migrated this one to null safety. I have a different branch here instead of in the pub.dev. Right now, we only have one remaining package to update, which is the Flutter Swiper. So with the Flutter Swiper, I've had the chance to look over the developer is not able to migrate it to null safety, but someone did a good job like migrating Flutter Swiper to a different package with a bunch of new features. So let's see. Flutter Swiper and try to check. Oh, simple switch. I guess underscore. All right. I guess this will be the last one for like at least for the production migration, because after this one, oh sorry. Oh, date picker. Yeah, at least for the date picker, yeah, like we have to migrate it as well to null safety. This was removed. The date picker is a package that we have here within the code. It like instead of getting hosted, like at GitHub or pub.dev, I have created a widget, a package within the code itself. So let me just try to migrate this one as well. Upgrade null safety. All right, Dart migrate. So again, I'm just migrating the date picker timeline, which is a package that like, is very custom for this project. So let's see. Right now, we're just migrating the picker. Okay, we'll have. All right, this will give us the link. Again, this is not the project. This is just one of the dependencies that like we have in the app. Because again, like before you migrate the package, you should migrate the project. You should migrate the packages and plugins first. So right now, this is the custom widget that I've built. There are a couple of things here that needs to be migrated. I'll just apply migration for quick demo. Apply, and if I try to go back to the main project, so right now I'm on the main project, Flutter or actually Dart, called upgrade. Okay, let's see. Start outdated, and let's see if we can start migrating the app. But again, we'll probably have to stop here, and let's see if this can be migrated to Flutter 2.0. All right. So with the things that we've done, like with the packages, with the plugins, now there are instances really, like where some of your, like packages rely on the developers, like if they're not responsive on, like when they plan to migrate their packages, you can just simply, create PRs, pull requests, or you have to migrate it on your own. Like for example, adding the package within your app. Um, that's pretty much it. Like at least for leave you over with some of the reminders or tips that you can use when you are migrating an app. Like whenever the pack developer like left or abandoned the project, you either have to self-host the project or the package, or send a PR on GitHub if they haven't migrated it yet. Migrate as early as you can to get the full benefits of null safety, especially if you are someone who's probably working on large chunk of features, because this will be really difficult not to do it as like for example, if you try to add more features along the way, add more developers to your team. And again, by migrating to null safety, you get the latest versions of the dependencies in a Flutter app. Some of the resources, probably just share the link over, but like everything here, dart.dev/null safety, the things that you need here, like we discussed here, are also demonstrated there, but except the quirks and the nuances that like very specific to your project. And yeah, that's pretty much it from my end.
Hi, Joshua.
Hi.
Sorry. We'll have a few questions for you from our viewers. Okay, the first question is it true that I need a large amount of RAM in using Flutter?
Um, and this is a good one, but I'm not sure if he's talking about during development. Like for example, if you need to
Yeah,
have a good
I think
PC,
I think
or
during.
yeah, or develop, or actually the app that uses the Flutter app. But
Yeah.
again, like I think for like I think just for at least almost similar with like native and iOS, the way I try to benchmark it, it's not something that I experience a lot. Like like it won't require me to have like 64 GB or 32 GB of RAM, but I think having good like 16 GB of RAM should be
Uh-huh.
enough. Even 8 can work fine, but I think if you're trying to look forward, I think 16 is a good benchmark for good RAM. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question, please. Oh, can we not migrate our app if all are the packages plugins that we have been using is not using null safety? Is this really required or just optional?
Yeah, like this is really a like like really a debate, but like because even if you try to migrate your project, like earlier I've shown you a a kind of like a linear approach. Like from start, you have to wait, like from the packages and plugins uh to starting the actually migration. But again, like with that, it's if you have started with your projects first, I think it will be really difficult because your app will not run. Not it's required. Your app will not run with sound null safety because there
Mm-hmm.
will be a mixture between like unsound null safety and old packages that you have, which is not yet migrated. So again, my recommendation is to go with like migrating the packages first before you try to migrate the project.
Okay. Next question. What are the common issues when migrating projects to null safety?
Right. Good question. Yes, earlier, the ones that I've shown you earlier is all related to packages, really, like at least common issues, because this is something that like developers like us is don't have a control over. Like for example, like we're using this package created by someone, and like if it's not like really active maintaining that package, that will be really a like kind of like an issue to the team. So this is outside and beyond our control. So like really you really like you either have to be proactive, like for example pinging the developer to migrate it, or you have to do it on your own. So at least that's kind of like the common issue that I've been encountering.
Okay. Next question. If we apply null safety on our Flutter app, do we expect 100% safety to NP, or is there some use case that NPEs will be thrown?
This is a good one. Like like even if we use null safety, there's no guarantee that 100% of the time the code like will not lead to an NPE or app crash. So again, like the migration tool and analyzer are intelligent enough to tell you potential NPEs, but you are smarter, like than the migration tool as a like as someone who is familiar with the business logic. Like for example, you have a lot of like very specific to the product that you're building, which is like the migration tool is not aware of,
Yeah.
and I guess like that can happen. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is the last question. Or, oh,
All right.
it was the last question, I guess.
All right.
Thank you, Kurt, for joining us today. And it was really, I mean, Joshua. Thank you, Joshua, for joining us today. It was really a pleasure.